They might interview you,
awesome
but
packet.
yeah, good. Thank you. Well, it's stuff, and the essays are very much mine, and it's nothing that I know y'all wouldn't just copy it or anything silly like that, but it's nothing that I think you would even sound anything like, but it's more like, what are topics and what is content that's even relevant, and when I think about who I am as, a theory, what does that mean? And
or even just having your autobiographical one, because that one I think
direction.
I've sat down and tried to think of what do I even put in here, hi, my name is Melissa.
Exactly.
I like to walk dogs.
Exactly.
But I don't know how to start that. So I appreciate that you can use humor, and that's more the relaxed one, I guess.
Yeah, that's how I took it, and
I got an internship.
And I got an internship. Great, and so that worked out for me, and that's just very much my style. But it was definitely the one where I was getting the most feedback from, and just being okay if people ripped it apart, because I didn't want it to sound goofy, and I didn't want them to think that I was making light of a huge deal, which is going to be a full-time clinician. So that was tough. But it was literally I got hit upside the head when I had the idea, I could use that. I could kind of go with this maybe. So just let yourself think about it. When you're working out, when you're doing stuff that isn't, focused completely, just let your mind kind of wander and see what comes out. Because sitting down with the pressure of I have to come up with it now is really hard, for me at least. So just having it on my mind works best for me. Yeah, but I hope that this is helpful, and it's it's nothing that's official, but it's just been my experience, and it's been things that have worked for me.
It's nice to hear from your perspective, because it's so different when the professors are trying to help us or just give us more paperwork, which professor does
especially
it.
for us, we get to see the before and after, and you have survived.
Exactly.
You still look pretty happy.
Very happy. Yeah, you just get happier. I mean, there's still a lot to do, facing ECCC and licensure and all that.
Did you finish your dissertation before you went?
No, I'm working on it now. I haven't finished, so don't do that. Yeah, finish it. But I'm okay with still working on it. I feel good about it and want it to be good and all that. So, but avoid that if you can. Especially if you're wanting to do an APA postdoc, you need to defend by December, basically.
Of this year?
No, December of your internship.
I have to go home right now.
No. But I mean, I would have proposed by the time you go on internship and really set that for you.
I think that they've required that now here.
Good.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I think that's really necessary. I think most places are like that now. But it is hard to work on. Maybe it's easier if you're living somewhere where you don't know anyone and aren't a newlywed, but I had a lot of trouble getting myself to want to do it. I was really happy working, and I loved my life. Well, shoot. But it's going to turn out just fine. But if a formal postdoc is going to be the way you need to go, either for licensure in the state you want to get licensed in, or just the avenue of training you want to do, really focus on that. Yeah, that's probably a piece of information I wish I'd had also. Maybe it would have given me a little more motivation. I don't know.
As far as stress levels go, would you say getting into an internship, doing all of this, doing all of the interviews, is that more or less stressful than comps?
Comps. Well, comps is more of a sprint, I thought. And this is kind of more of a marathon. Okay. I mean, comps is kind of like a sprinting marathon in a way. But
that's a good analogy.
I don't know. That's what it felt like for me. But that might just be the style that I study in. And it's, full-time for a while is the way I like to study, not a little bit at a time. So, it's not good. But there are different kinds of stress. Because this is comps, you can learn it and you can do well. There's not as much an element of being out of control. And with internship, you're really out of control, at least the application process. people are going to tell you no, they don't want you, and you have to deal with all that rejection, and for a lot of people it's the first time you've been rejected, and so that is kind of like more emotionally stressful. And then also just the sacrifice of, okay, I have to spend all this money to go travel to these sites, and that's a sacrifice and a stress that you kind of have to figure out how to deal with, and which sites are worth interviewing at. Even that, or there's some that you've got to do a phone interview at.
Did you do a lot of phone interviews?
No, I didn't. I had one site that they didn't do interviews, and I think this is maybe the way that a lot in Washington and Oregon are. They don't do interviews, but they have visiting days.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. I chose not to go to the visiting day. I just thought, if this really doesn't apply to my rank at your site, then I'm not going to spend the extra $600 to go out there. I just couldn't at that point.
And do you think that
I wasn't all that interested in the site, so it was fine.
Because I found some that say they don't do interviews in person, they only do phone interviews.
Most college, or a lot of university counseling centers say
only do that,
Really?
which I thought was really weird, especially for our field, where you get so much out of body language and the way people react, to only have a disembodied voice on the phone.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had done any of those.
I did a phone interview at a site. It was in New Orleans, and their clinics are all spread out kind of throughout New Orleans because the hospital got destroyed in Katrina. So they had people who were kind of at satellite offices. So I was like on the phone. I was at the VA, the clinic, in central New Orleans. But I'm talking to someone in a satellite clinic, and it was really weird. So that's my only experience, and it was pretty awkward. So I would say if you're gonna do them, practice them first.
Okay.
Literally have someone call you and do a practice phone interview, because you need to hear, am I sounding too giddy? Am I sounding boring?
Am I breathing really hard in the beginning?
Little things, what's my phone connection gonna be like? All this stuff. Just think about where you are. Make sure you're somewhere with service. Just all that stuff.
That seems so little, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I would practice a phone interview if you're gonna do them honestly, to see how to
Skype.
modulate.
Or Skype. Skype would be the best.
Yeah, a lot of them say Skype on it too. Oh, really?
Sorry, I have to go.
Yeah,
Thank
go
you
ahead.
so much.
You're welcome. Good to meet you. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. Good luck
Don't
with
get
the
overwhelmed right
situation.
now.
I'm really scared.
It all happens.
It comes later.
All right. Any other questions that we should have on our...
So is the interview format's typically just they're on one side of the desk, you're on the other, and they're talking to you, or is it?
And my site's interviews were all one-on-one, actually more like one-on-two. It was two professionals and then 2 psychologists and then me. That depended by site, but
Sure.
I know where I matched, they do 2 and 1, I think, just so they have a more fair ranking. If it's real discrepant, they might try to figure out what happened there. But it's individual interviews, and usually between 6 and 20 people per day. It really varies, especially depending on how many people they're interviewing, how many slots there are, stuff like that. It was definitely a lot more comfortable when it was more 5 people to 8 people versus the 20. Because that's how Dallas was, and I left there thinking they're not going to know who I am. There's no way, there were 19 people here today, there's no way they know. But they do, they've done this for a while.
Here, so
yeah, but I didn't have any group interviews or anything goofy like that. So,
that's good.
I don't know if
People
that's...
interacting, it's just plain old strange.
Yeah, it is strange, so hopefully people will figure that out.
Hopefully they assume that you know how to interact with the station.
you would hope. So I didn't have any of that, but they will, we didn't actually rank interns, but we were told, if there's any red flags, we want to know. So, you eat lunch with them. You'll eat lunch with, a lot of the interns, and that's your time to just ask them anything, whatever. And do be comfortable. You can ask, what's it like to live in this podunk town? Stuff, you can ask stuff like that, are people, do you really only work 40 hours? Those are kind of, more personal questions that you can, or not personal, but more...
normal one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if someone was weird, then we did tell. We were that person was really weird at lunch. They just kind of interpersonal stuff that I don't think any of you would have a problem with at all. But so just be on your best behavior when you're with the current interns, because you don't know what their role is really. We didn't rank, but the competition.
Yeah, because I remember at the interviews for grad school,
Yeah.
there was a huge variety of people there. People that should not even walk in the building. and
Yeah, no, everyone's really good.
That's what I figured.
Everyone's really darn good.
Is it really intimidating?
No, as soon as you realize that they're interviewing you for a reason, you've really got to be comfortable with who you are as a clinician, which I think for me was something that developed during internship more so than before. But you kind of have to fake it and, be sure that I'm supposed to be here. And, just because this person's been at Stanford and they've, been working with Bandura, that doesn't mean anything.